Hey guys, Lisa here with I Died, NDE, Near-Death Experience. As I said earlier when I introduced this channel, we'll not only be talking about near-death experiences, but other paranormal phenomenon. And today, our topic is, I see ghosts, do you? It's called being a medium, to be able to see past the veil of death and to communicate with the dead. And you may be surprised to learn that all of us can do this, or all of us have done it, but you may not recognize it when it's happening. So about 10 points I want to talk to you about before I get to my story. And those 10 points define what a medium sees or feels or hears when someone from beyond is communicating with us. Okay? One of the ways you can tell that you've had a medium experience is there may be some strange phenomenon involving light, or orbs, balls of light, that zip around the room, or that hang out on either side of your peripheral vision, but when you turn to look, they disappear. That can be someone from the beyond trying to visit or check up on you. It's not your imagination, it's real. Have you ever heard thuds or footsteps that weren't the cat in the room, yet you're looking right at where it's coming from, and there's nothing that you can perceive visually? How about a dream of a person who's passed that leaves you with a lasting impression that can last hours, days, months, or years, that you remember this dream? Excuse me, it's the time of year that I do a lot of coughing. Anyway, it's a dream that hangs around, you just can't shake it. That's usually that person trying to communicate with you. How about sensing a presence around you or feeling a passing touch? Often that's accompanied with a buzzing sensation, goosebumps, cold or warm air that passes you. We've all experienced that, I know. How about hearing a voice or a particular sound that you associate with a person that's passed? Sometimes when we meditate or chant or go into prayer, you hit this kind of zone that you're in. It's called an alpha state. It's when your brain is super relaxed. That's when you can perceive these types of things pretty strongly. There are also partial and full spirit visitations, where you actually see your loved one like they're solid and they're right there in front of you for a fleeting second. It's like video cameras coming in and out. The images kind of shakes or blinks. But they'll always be younger and healthier than they were when they died. They come to you in a happier form. There are signs and symbols. Now, what do I mean by signs and symbols? All of a sudden their favorite song comes on the radio that you know that they remembered, and you've had a strong remembrance of them. Or this is something that's happened to many of us. You have a good friend on your mind intensely for some reason, and then all of a sudden the phone rings and it's them. Explain that. That's because you're connected spiritually. And chances are, if one of you passes before the other, you probably get a visitation. That's true whether the person has passed or is still with us. Mothers who know that their children are into something or in trouble without having any apparent clues. That's all part of this ability. Now, when we are children, before we're taught by life and religious leaders that all this is nonsense, or people that just don't believe. And we learn to suppress these things as we get older. But when we're children, we are able to see that invisible friend, or communicate with grandma who's passed on. And even our pets. If you've observed your dog or your cat looking at something, turning their head, or chasing something that is invisible to you, and it really looks like they're chasing something, the veil for them between the beyond and now is much less defined, and of course they're not taught to suppress these things, so they react to them. So when your pet's doing that, maybe they're seeing another pet, a prior pet, or maybe a ghost bird in the case of a cat, who knows. But we all live in a energy field. When we're alive, we emit a certain frequency. And when we die, we change over to another frequency, but it's all energy. And we'll go into that concept more as I share with you the other revelations I've had through my death experience. But that's down the road. So in death, we transfer from one energy field to another energy field, or vibration, whatever you want to call it. And I will speak to this quite in a lot of detail when we get closer to the biggest part of my story for you. So stay tuned to future episodes of I Died, NDE, and we'll go over that. So, but right now, let's get to my story that, getting back to when you're a child, before I learned to suppress these things, and I did for a few years and denied that what I was seeing and experiencing was real. I'll take you back to the 1960s when I was 9 or 10 years old. In my neighborhood, children were mostly boys, but I had one girlfriend that lived way down at the other end of our street that came over on occasion. I rarely went to see her, but she came to see us because I always had an adult in the house and she may not have. So she would come spend afternoons after school with me. In the 60s, there was a TV show called Dark Shadows. I don't know if any of you are as old as I am that remember Dark Shadows, but it had to do with the paranormal and Ouija boards and talking to spirits and clairvoyance and these type of phenomenon. And all the kids loved this show. It's all we talked about at school. A lot of us went and bought Ouija boards and have seances. So Lisa here decides she was hold a seance in the basement, which was not drafty. It was a converted basement. At a table with a big old candle in the middle of the table, I gathered 4 or 5 of my friends around me. We held hands, we closed our eyes, and I said, "Clear your mind, clear your mind. Oh, spirits of the afterlife, come forward. Tell us you're here." And I opened my eyes and I looked at my friends who were all sitting there with their eyes tightly closed. And I watched the flame on the candle go, and all of a sudden these images started coming into my mind. So I started talking, right, being the leader. What I saw first was a pair of hands coming toward me, long white fingers holding a hand-crocheted Afghan. Now this Afghan had bright colors in the center of each square, like flowers, lined in black. It was really quite lovely, and I started describing it in detail. And then I described the face that appeared above this apparition. She was very white, had a long facial structure with a pointed chin, high cheekbones, sunken cheeks, white hair and an elegant bun on the top of her head, the most dramatic looking black eyebrows. And she was just looking at me, handing me this blanket. About the time I finished describing her black eyebrows, my friend Kathy drops my hand, jumps up, turns, screams at me. "You are so mean. You're mean. You're mean. I'm never talking to you again." And she ran out the door, ran all the way down the street and went home. I was like, what the hell, right? Later in the day, her mother called my mother. And she says, "I can't believe Lisa is so cruel. She was so cruel to Kathy." And teasing her about her grandmother that died last week. Apparently, the grandmother who lived in Italy had sent this quilt to Kathy in Massachusetts, which is where I was born and raised. And it had arrived a few days after Grandma died. The very quilt I had seen in my vision and described to a T. I had not seen this blanket. I had not been to Kathy's house. I did not know that her grandma had died. I had never seen a photo of her grandma. Yet I described the woman to the slightest detail, down to her arched black eyebrows. Explain that. How does that happen? The only explanation is Grandma saw the portal that we opened by clearing our minds, going to that safety zone, low energy zone where we're open to impression, and she came down and centered on me to deliver this message that she had sent this blanket to Kathy for her birthday. You can't tell me that these things aren't real. I've lived them. What have you lived that's similar? Share. Stay tuned. Here comes the live broadcast where we can talk about it. Okay? Get your drink, a good warm beverage maybe, and sit where you're comfortable. And let's share. See you in a few minutes.